Undisclosed location.
Yes.
Hello. Welcome. We're live.
Happy Wednesday.
It's Wednesday. This is Mark and Gary here at Gary's Guitars. We're here to talk about guitars, amps, pedals, things to do, metaphysical guitar playing, just all sorts of whatever you want to talk about. We just do it once a week, informal as can be.
Even if we don't know what they're talking about.
Even if we have no idea, we'll talk about it too. Sure, what the heck? Just kind of getting together with the folks. I was away last week, so I apologize for that. I was, like I said, at an undisclosed location. I have a part-time moonlight job that causes me to travel occasionally. Is that a good way to say it? And it's not, yeah. But it's confidential in nature. So, Grandpa guitarist from Kansas, Emporia, Kansas, just chime in. So what we usually say is we introduce ourselves, and you introduce yourself. If you're out there listening, watching, say hi, tell us where you're from. It's a good way to kind of get things going and get to know people out there. An international audience. We usually
a few.
We got some Australia. We got some. Got our men in Hungary. We got
Ireland
and England, and Germany. Some Germans come by.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it's an international guitar.
Nobody from Asia yet.
This is the time difference. It must be terrible. I guess.
Yeah, it is. 12 hours.
It's exactly 12 hours or something. Yeah. So it's really sleepy time, especially for guitarists.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I also have to apologize that I don't have my tablet with me, so I'm actually using my phone to read the questions, and I really don't like when people looking at their phone instead of talking to whoever they're supposed to be talking to. As a matter of fact, this is a pet peeve of mine. When people are on stage reading lyrics off their phone, can't take it. When they're reading off a tablet, that's fine, because it's not like in their face. When you see someone in that position, they're holding their phone, they're cradling their phone in one hand, and they're reading lyrics, it just looks like they're not performing.
It does.
Yeah. So that's my grumpy old man routine. But so yeah, some regulars. The other Doug Bennett from San Antonio.
Yeah.
J.K. Let me say this right. Rubez. I don't know how to. He's from Dover. I don't know. I think we know your real name too. Tell us your real name if you want. East Bay is here a lot. Gary's rocking that shirt. Yeah, you get the guitar shirt.
Yeah.
Hawaiian guitar shirt.
Fender.
Fender promo.
What do they call that? The stuff they make you buy every year. You have to buy $500
worth of lifestyle items. Yeah.
I saw it on. Okay, yeah, send me one of those. Sure. I like Hawaiian shirts.
Yeah.
I even like Stratocasters.
Yeah. So I ordered. So every year, when we re-up to be a Fender dealer, they're like, okay, you need to get your lifestyle accessories.
Yeah. Oh.
You see, there's still a few left. The cutting boards, pint mug. There's one cutting board left.
It's over there. Yeah.
Pint mugs, pint glasses. What else have we had? Some really weird stuff. Beanie hats actually sell all right. It's a cool little beanie hat they make, and we got them in July.
Right, just in time for
the heat wave. So they're sitting out back waiting for the next winter to come. We did order them last winter, but they just didn't come. Check in here. Paul's here. Is her? I think he meant to say is here. JJ UK, yes. London Calling. Grandpa Guitarist. Can you guys tell me if there's a difference between the Ignition versus Contemporary series of Hofner violin basses? Yes, I can.
He knows all this stuff.
So Hofner has 3 lines. Ignition. Well, there are 2 kinds of ignition too. There's ignition and ignition plus. And there really is a difference between them. And the plus are good enough that we only carry those. We don't carry the ignition that's $50 less, but doesn't have that cheaps out on a couple of parts. So ignition is the made in Asia copy of a Hofner that's sold by Hofner. So, like if you've seen the J. Tercer Hofners or the Epiphone kind of violin-based thing that they make that's Hofner-esque, they usually miss a couple of the design details. The Hofner one is really good, and it only misses 2 design details. But if you want the Contemporary series, it's also made in Asia. It's made in China, I believe. It costs, they kind of retail for just under $1,000, $899 or something. They're quite good, and they are an exacting replica of the 60s or the contemporary, the actual Hofner of today. Because of the way they do the set neck. They have a set neck with that space underneath the fingerboard where it meets the body. They leave that out of the ignition.
Oh, yeah.
And then the other thing is the 0 fret. The ignition doesn't have a zero fret. But if you measure the scale length is calculated as if it had a 0 fret, meaning the Hofner ignition base is 1/4 of an inch longer in scale length than the Contemporary series. So they measured the whole thing tip to tail, and they're like, okay, that's our scale length. They put the frets in the right places, but there's just that little extra length. Yeah. So Contemporary series are really amazing. They're kind of worth the extra money. If I were staring at either of them and I wasn't like, if money wasn't like the only object, I'd say Contemporary series is definitely better. It uses the same hardware that the German-made instruments use, which is largely Korean-made. But the exact same hardware as the German-made. And then the next step up is the German-made Hofners, and they start at 2,500, and go up from there. They sell a lot less of them, and they are nice. They are, just traditional Hofner basses made by Hofner. But the bang for the buck Contemporary series is a lot of bang for the buck. Speaking of Hofner basses, Mike Endicott is here. And hung. So he just chimed in and said hi. Mike played a Hofner for quite a few years. Didn't he have a club, right, Mike? You had a club. I mean, he's known for the Silver Tone that he played, that he claimed bought him a house.
I honestly don't remember him playing a Hofner.
Yeah, he's had a few Hofners. I remember that.
He had a box of Hofner parts. A couple of which are still here.
No, he sold a Hofner bass here when he moved away. Yeah.
Right.
Let's see if anyone else is chiming in here. So yeah, basically, if you're just joining us, it's Guitar Talk. We talk about guitars, guitar-related things. Ask us anything. Join in the conversation. If we're talking crap, let us know. Just
us.
Yeah. No, it couldn't be. And just saying hi to the regulars who are chiming in there. Emporia, Kansas. Where is Emporia, Kansas?
I was going to ask that question.
Yeah, whereabouts in Kansas? I was in Galena, Kansas once.
I've been in
Cute
Kansas City
town.
and Salinas, however you say it.
Kansas City is in both Missouri and Kansas.
Yeah.
That's the confusing part.
Yeah, well.
Most of it is in Missouri.
Right.
That makes it even more confusing.
I had a great Mexican meal in Salinas.
Salinas, probably, yeah.
Spent the night there on the way to Colorado.
But I kind of like Galena. It's kind of this little town that's not. But they just keep it up nice. I mean, it's like not a wealthy town or anything, but it's like it just looks like they care, like a Western town look, because it was made like in the 1900s out of nothing. So just all these little brick buildings everywhere.
What I remember of Kansas, just driving through the middle of it, was on the border of Missouri. There's Kansas City and a number of other towns and cities, and then there's nothing till you get to Colorado, or even past. You get halfway through Colorado before you get to something again. So I'm trying to picture. It must be around that area, or a little. It's a little farm town, maybe.
Emporia is between Wichita and Kansas City. Yeah, so Wichita is like kind of central almost, and Kansas City is we know where that is. We've been there. That's cool. I dig Kansas. I don't dig tornadoes, but otherwise, I like Kansas. It's a nice laid-back place. And then also, we just got a question from East Bay. Baz says, "Stuff in the shop. What make is the brown amp behind you?" And he's looking at that Gretsch amp. So
Tolex has been taken off.
Yeah.
Did you date it? 50s, early mid 50s.
Very late 50s, probably 58. I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think we went through a pot check and we didn't
It's
do
a
that yet.
2-part amp. The
Yeah.
power amp section is on the bottom, like a polytone, and the preamp section is on the top where the knobs are.
Yeah. And the power supply is in the power amp section. It's kind of, anyways, it's a Valvo.
I don't know that word.
Valco. Sorry.
Oh,
Valvo makes the tubes. Valco makes the amps, and I keep mixing them up.
Okay.
People get really angry when I do. If I say Valvo instead of Valco, man, people get upset.
The word Valvo.
Valvo is a tube maker. They're an electronics maker, European. German, perhaps.
But yeah, any off-brand amp from
Yeah.
the 50s was made by Valco.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, they were the and it's really cool. It's only $7.99 because someone deluxed it and put a new grill cloth on it. But we just went through it, did everything it needs. It's ready to go. So buy it.
I have to let them know that the one time a customer wanted to try it and I was here, I couldn't get it turned on. It has a number of switches that don't have the usual terminology.
Yeah, no, it's a rotten thing. And there's like 4 switches you got to turn on to make it turn on.
I got the E. It has an E tuning.
Well, it has a tuner that gives you the tone.
Yeah, you hit E.
And you can move
it's
up.
on.
Yeah,
Okay.
and you can move up the scale too. It'll give you each of the notes.
Really?
I think a signal generator or something.
So it's chromatic.
It's not chromatic, but to a guitar. I think it does, or it did it. But so it has a tuner built in, but not really.
Yeah.
And it's the other weird thing about it is there's about 4 switches you have to turn on to actually make it make sounds.
Yeah.
And make sure the tuner's off because it won't make it sound while the
Turn
tuner's
that
on.
on.
But apart from that, it's a pretty cool little Gretsch amp.
Single 12 or double
I
12?
think it's single.
I forget.
I think 2. No, it looks like 2.
I'm afraid of it.
Yeah, no. Yeah,
I've never gone back to it.
Yeah, 2 12s.
2 12s.
And it is it's that kind of thing. It's got that sound that overdriven not overdriven, but so it's got 6L6s, but it's not like a Bassman 6L6 sound. It is definitely 25 watts, not it's 20 watts, maybe not 40. Somehow Leo Fender could squeeze every last watt out of an amp, out of a tube.
Right.
A pair of 6V6s 6L6s should give you 35 watts max, but for some reason, Fender has a 50 watt Bassman that says pretty loud, and it uses 2 6L6s. Do not question Leo Fender. That's what we learned. Mike says, I restored a club bass and sold it to Gary. Sold it. I still have my beat to death 65 Beetle bass. Used it with 3 big bands I played with in Pennsylvania. Okay, so that was the Pennsylvania.
That's why I never saw him play it.
But yeah, the Silvertone was something. Thoughts, please, on using micro mesh on bodywork. Are we talking about car repair, or are we talking about guitar repair?
Bondo and micro. No.
I have a Mint 2007 Taylor GA3 with a gloss top, but a satin back and sides, and I like to take the satin to a gloss.
To use it as
take
a buffing
satin,
tool.
yeah, right. What do you reckon?
Well, to get us what I know, I think I know.
Yeah.
To get a gloss finish takes roughly 12 coats of paint. Satin is 9. So you don't have much paint there that you'll wear through
buff it, you
pretty
might,
quick buffing it.
You can't really buff it to a shine. It's meant the actual paint. Sometimes they use epoxy based paints that never shine. They use that on the back and the sides, and they do the top with.
I've seen satin finished guitars that are matte finished that people have put too much guitar polish on and buff too hard, and it starts to shine, but never gets glossy.
It never gets right.
Certainly not like that.
Yeah, so this is not the one I'm thinking of. Let me grab a...
So be careful or you'll wear right through that finish.
Give me a second. Let me give an example.
Okay.
Because Fender did this funny thing on this guitar. So here's the Squier Jazzmaster with P90s. Pretty cool. And it's got a Strat style tremolo. But it's Squire. It's inexpensive. It's weird and cool. So you see the back of the neck has that matte finish, which is an epoxy finish. And the front side of the headstock has a gloss. And it's a totally different paint. And it's pretty obvious that it's they sprayed them at a total other, So they either matted the whole thing and then oversprayed this a few times, and the overspray goes around in the fingerboard, very Fender. And but this is where they combine the two finishes on the same neck. So, but they are not. You can't really buff. I don't think there's enough buffing.
Yeah, well, the modern paints are, I want to say epoxy based, but
yeah, and they're like 3-coat. They're like they put them real thick. They're like
right.
3-coat.
Yeah,
kind of things,
there's no buff, not a lot of buffing involved.
Yeah,
not like a lacquer finish.
So I guess what you would do, even though we're obviously not paint experts, is you would have to put the gloss finish over the existing matte. The matte finish would be a base for the gloss finish.
If it's lacquer.
Yeah. But
rubbing
it till it shines, not likely.
The few guitars I've seen painted, it seemed to me the hardest part was the buffing part, to get it to shine without cutting right through the paint down to the primer.
Yeah.
Okay, take it apart and spray some more paint on it. Try it again.
And this brings up the larger thing about messing with paint jobs. Best not to. It is a dark art because you have so many thin coats of nothing that are micro sanded in between coats, and just real easy on a guitar, because on a guitar you don't want a lot of finish. So they really Godin came up with this great idea. Robert Godin told the story about they went down to Detroit to an auto factory that went out of business, and he bought some of those painting robots that paint cars.
Right.
And he brought them back to Canada. And then it took 1.5 years for his engineering team to teach these robots how to paint a guitar.
It's not that kind of Fender.
Yeah.
It's this kind of Fender.
But now the Godin guitars are painted by robots. Right. The robot grabs the guitar off the wall, it brings it over the painting area, it sprays it, it puts it back up on the shelf, it goes to the next one. And does all that work by itself as a robot.
Right. I remember it used to be a common topic 25 years ago. It seemed like unlimited guitar players wanted to paint their guitars or strip their guitars and make them another color, and now it's hardly ever brought up.
And like we say, we say this often, the people who do it well, there's just less and less of them around.
I don't. Last I heard, the closest guy was Cincinnati, but the good guy was in Florida.
There's that guy, but I don't think he's doing this. There's someone on the West Coast who's like up there. But there's basically probably 6 guys in America who are painting guitars all day, every day. And sometimes you get an auto shop that can paint all right. But maybe for a flat color, they can't burst. Bursting is difficult too. That's a whole other thing.
Mike in Hungary, he's got the burst down.
Yeah, it took him a while.
Well,
right.
It's an art.
Yeah, it is literally an art.
Unless you're a computer, then it's probably really easy.
Unless you're a robot at Godin, and then that goes all right. And I was also say about the robot thing. There's another thing about the robot that flashed in my mind when I told that story. But I forgot it, so that's all right. Robots painting guitars. It's So like the reason cars don't rust as much as they used to, except for your car, but the reason your car
because I got it from you.
Your car's 15 years old is only starting to rust, whereas cars used to rust in 5 years. Right. It's because robots paint them, and they have a laser that can tell the depth of the paint that was on it, and they sand it perfectly, and they go back and they hit it with a perfect amount. They know how much to add, and so like the cars are really sealed up now. And the same thing with guitars are painted really well. Really cheap guitars like that Squire I showed you, or this Squire here. This is a cheap guitar with a great paint job. This is a supersonic. Look at the gloss on that headstock. That's a beautiful gloss. And that logo is just perfectly glossed over. This is a better paint job than Fender sometimes does on their American guitars, as far as how how well that because it's a decal on the logo, and then to build up over that.
Oh, and that's glossy. Oh,
Yeah, this has a glossy neck. This one has a glossy neck. But just well done. And then you get this metal sparkle.
Well, isn't
and,
this like you were just saying? That's probably only 2 or 3 coats of paint.
Well, yeah. This is it
It's
could
not
be,
a
but
ton
it's a
of work.
nice gloss, though. I mean, it's a nice looking guitar. I don't mean to.
I painted one guitar. Well, it's a bass.
Yeah.
When Chris Byrne was here and he could coach me through it just so I could say I did it.
Yeah.
I kept track. It was about 50 hours of work. I think I got up to 9 or 10 coats before I just
Okay,
to hell with it.
It's done.
But it's an hour of painting and then it's 49 hours of sanding.
Yeah, wet sanding with
and it came out okay.
Wet sanding with a piece of sandpaper that is less rough than your
Oh, yeah,
fingertip.
it's like 2,000.
Yeah.
It's a lot. It
might as well
was
just
a lot
rub
of
your
work.
hand on it.
Now it's pretty.
Yeah. Now it's robots.
Do companies still dip them? Some companies used to do that.
Oh, there's that. Then that's the epoxy ones, and that's like the
Mm.
one coat. Like that's
Right.
those Ibanez's that are all falling
Right.
apart now. They all have that kind of look. I don't think it. I think with the advent of the robots spraying, it doesn't like it's not like a. We don't see a lot of those bad epoxy paint jobs anymore. And there's a trend now in acoustics to have open pores and very little finish on the guitars,
Right.
including the Tetons that we sell a lot of. But even the Art and Luther, you see that Art and Luther over there is
Wow.
very.
I think Godin
Very
started that. They were
Yeah.
the first Mac guitars.
Yeah, low.
I
Yeah,
remember.
matte guitars,
And all
low
of a
luster
sudden,
finish.
everybody's doing it.
Yeah.
And their philosophy was it'll sound better because it's got less paint on it.
That's true.
Makes sense to me.
All right, let's check in with the room. It's enough paint talk from two guys who don't paint guitars, but no, we don't paint guitars, but we know enough to say get a pro to do it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Because like you were saying, 50 hours or whatever. That's you're gonna screw up the first 10 that you do anyways. Usually screw up the first 10 anything you do.
Right.
So you're gonna make 10 nuts and then you'll stop screwing them up. You got to record 10 records and then you'll stop
Right.
screwing up other people's records.
Well, the good thing about painting, if you screw it up, you just sand it off and start
Yeah.
over.
And then a nut, you just throw it away and start another one.
Although we did see a telly once that was,
Noticeably smaller.
I won't say a quarter of an inch, but pretty close to a quarter of an inch smaller in every dimension,
Yeah.
the body,
Oh yeah, that's right.
and then had been finished. And it was like, cool. And wait a minute.
Like
what's
wait a minute, the neck
there's
doesn't
something
line up here. Yeah.
weird about this guitar? Oh,
The neck
body,
pocket actually
everything.
shrunk or something. No, the
Yeah.
back of the neck pocket, so there's two little neck hanging out over the
I
edge.
said, oh yeah, I sanded it until it looked really good.
and
Sanded off too much guitar there.
then and I think we mentioned this before in past shows, but do not try to strip a made in Mexico Fender from the 90s or the early 2000s.
You should have some
What's it?
dynamite or something.
Yeah. The stuff they use this stuff, and this is epoxy based paint, and it is just it's a one thick coat, and it's glued to itself, and it's basically a chisel.
Yeah.
And when you're done, the guitar is probably going to look like crap, because one thing they did on those, because remember these are guitars that sold new for $400, $350, $400, right? Strats, P basses, and whatever. And so they had a different rule for the Mexican-made guitars, which is they could use up to 5 pieces of wood, and they could use whatever was left in the bin.
Right.
So the bodies for the American guitars would be 3-piece, 2-piece, and all the leftover sticks of wood would be made into Mexican Telecasters. That's why they're often heavy, because they'd select the lightest woods to go for the American guitars and the other ones. Now that isn't the case anymore, by the way. So. But don't strip. Just word to the wise. There's nothing you can do about the paint job.
Hammer and a chisel.
But it's just heartbreak. It's hammer, a
Right.
chisel, and heartbreak.
Yeah, then
You'll never be able to put that much paint on the guitar again, and it will never. Just don't do it.
Most of the decent paint jobs I see are rub-on gloss now.
Yep.
It's not real gloss, but it's kind of matte.
Yeah, kind of like a French polish kind of thing.
It
Yeah.
looks okay.
Yeah.
They have colors. Blue is bluish and red is reddish, and it looks fine.
Okay. Crapo is here. John from New Jersey is checking in. Yeah, he's here every time. So once again, John and everyone out there, sorry I missed last week. I was on the road. Couldn't get back in time. And before that, I was on the road and I did make it back. I drove like hell to get back and make it on time.
Drove from
don't
New
want to let
York.
people. Drove from Manhattan downtown, 50th Street.
Quarter of or something.
Yeah, something like that.
I'm here.
Yeah, I made it. I was all tired and whacked out, and I couldn't set the cruise control once the whole way here. So for those of you who aren't around here, it's on a good day 4.5 hour drive. Most days it's a 5 and something hour drive to from New York to here, and I couldn't set the cruise control once. I was in traffic from the island of Manhattan all the way up to the Maine border. All the way to Connecticut, Massachusetts, it was just. And complaining about traffic is what happens when you get old, folks. So, just saying. So yeah, thanks for checking in, Jimmy Joe Fine. Sorry, he's a usual regular too. I skip these names around, but you got to admit they're a little weird, folks. Like Chris Lammy is out there, but he's got this weird, right? He's got a weird handle.
Oh, yes, the pseudonyms.
Yeah. Roberto Fordo, though.
Well, that's obvious to us,
but Chris hasn't been around lately, because during Red Sox season, he's just never around. I guess.
Right, there's a game. Pre-game is right now.
Yeah, so you can't. That guy never misses a game. It's one of the benefits to being
this year.
Yeah, exactly. But he's still watching every game.
Oh, I tuned it in every night to go. Oh yeah, they're losing. Okay.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, like watching the weather forecast now. Like knowing it's going to rain. A lot of poly finishes are very difficult to remove. Yes, like epoxy, and we were just talking about that. Nice shirt. Another
Thank
shirt
you.
compliment. A good day from Melbourne, Australia. So that's my Australian accent. You come here to die, mate. That's my. Enjoying the show. What are your thoughts? Well, now you're not going to enjoy the show. I made fun of the Australian accent, though. It is a much more charming accent.
We're just doing your best.
Yeah. No, it's much more charming. That's like the, that's the exaggerated version. What are your thoughts on Fender bringing out a Tone Master head? Have they announced that? I didn't know if they announced that or not. Or you're just saying like that would be a good idea. The Tone Master head, so I had this friend. He's a great pedal steel player around here, Dan Beller McKenna. You know Dan. He's a professor at UNH, and he literally wrote the book on it. He just wrote a book on Townes Van Zandt, and he's a great pedal steel player. And he always played twins back in the day because that's the only way. Because pedal steel players are always really concerned about getting that bell tone, getting the whole sound, that wide range, loud. You can't.
Right.
You can't play a pedal steel through a champ. So it always had twins back in the day. He finally switched to a Tone Master twin, but he switched to taking his twin head out, putting the head in a cab, like a Bandmaster cab, and having the head and the cabinet separate so that'd be a little easier to carry. And then he moved his head. He finally moved to the Tone Master. But then he started swapping the speakers out, which kind of defeats the Tone Master purpose because they have ultra light speakers. Yeah. But he put some heavy speakers in it. Anyways,
the weight part.
My point to him was, why don't you put the Tone Master head in your Fender head cabinet, and then leave cabinets wherever you play, because he's got a weekly gig in Lewiston. And just leave a cabinet at home. Cabs are cheap now. Leave a cab in Lewiston. Leave a cab in Durham, and just carry the little Tone Master head around. That would be great. Now, I don't know if the question was if they said they're going to do that, then that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea because you can also pair it up with any kind of speakers.
Right. Well, the Bassman pops into my head.
Yeah. Well, no, they have it. Well, they had. Have you seen the new Bassman? It's like this big and it's 800 watts.
No, that doesn't work for me.
Yeah.
No, but issue a 1964 Bassman head.
Bassman head,
50 watts.
And if it was super light.
With the thing you switch, turn it attenuator in the back. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Have they made it? Nothing for bass in the Tone Master series.
Well, they don't call it Tone Master. In the Rumble series, they have something that works in the Tone Master principle, which is a crazy loud Class D amp and a preamp that simulates the tone of a bass window. That's why the Rumble sounds so good.
Right.
They do have this kind of digital processing that just kind of like puts that stamp of a good bass sound on there.
Well, I'm thinking the volume of bands now is so low. Everybody's guitar players are using 30-watt amps. A 50-watt bass would be great.
People are coming in and saying like, "Oh, I got to get rid of this 30-watt amp. I need a 15-watt amp."
Right.
Yeah, it's crazy that. Well, no one wants to hear loud bands anymore. But also, PAs are so much better than they used to be.
Right.
That you can just, DI in the PA, or you can you mic up your amp.
For years, I wanted to play gigs with a bassman.
Yeah,
but it wasn't loud enough. Same with the B15.
Yeah, B15, you need two of them.
Right. But now they could work.
I told the story recently. Remember in the Get Back, for those who watched the Get Back movie, when they're having all that trouble with Paul's bass sound, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, they picked up the Rickenbacker, but there was something wrong with it. And he went back to the Hofner. He's playing through a basement. But he's playing through the basement through the 212 cab, which was, you can't do that, Paul. But when all that was happening, there was a B15 in the room on the other side of the drum set. And I would just be yelling like I was watching a football game.
Right.
I'd be like, there's a B15 right over there. Just plug in the B15 and everything will go. Just the B15. And then George Martin comes out and he's messing with stuff. And yeah, B15, that's all it takes. That's the answer for bass.
Yeah, that would be perfect.
Sorry to editorialize so hard. But yeah, so your thoughts on a Fender bringing out a Tone Master head? I hope they do. That's the thought on that.
Also, I think the Vibrolux head, that was a great head.
Yeah.
Bandmaster, of course.
Yeah. So, and then you can use it with a 112 if you want, or a 212, or you're like, oh, I'm going to a practice. I can just take the 112.
Right.
It's convenient. And then super lightweight without a speaker in it. So
I think they're working on it.
So what happened with it? So the Tone Master thing is catching on. I think initially it wasn't catching on.
Well, yeah.
And they just had too many of them. And then during the pandemic, it's all they had. They were out of every other amp. But they had Tone Masters left over. And now they've run out of Tone Masters because of that chip shortage stuff, I think.
It's like trying to get my generation to get rid of the landline and get a cell phone.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
But we did it.
Yeah, and eventually you did it, and it does make sense. I used to strip epoxy finishes with a torch. Guess who said that?
Right.
Yeah, with a torch if they were going to be painted a solid color. Yeah, stinky. Yeah, that's going to take a few years off your life. Yeah, stinky. You better been wearing a mask. And
so that's what Mike's problem is.
Yeah, that explains a lot. Yeah. And Albert says, I would prefer a Tone Master Princeton Reverb. Yeah, they haven't made a Princeton Tone Master. I do like the Deluxe Tone Master. That's the one that I own. You're probably sick of hearing about it if you're a regular. It's the one, digital thing I own, really. Look, I never bought the Line 6. I never bought digital anything for all those years. I have, 17 tube amplifiers.
Well, do you get the impression from Fender that the impetus behind the Tone Master was weight? Is that the key thing?
I mean, that's their bragging rights. Yeah.
Right. Well, Princeton's don't weigh that much.
Anyway,
so
that's true too. Yeah, right.
12 pounds to 10 pounds.
Yeah, it's like, yeah. Princeton's kind of manageable, anyways. Princeton's one of their most popular amps. I'd say the Princeton and the Deluxe right now are because people like that 15 watt.
Right.
Those are technically 18 or 20, but yeah.
Great.
That's a sound that people can get groovy at that volume. But yeah, it's a turning of a page. Tube amps were essential until recently, and now, Mark Knopfler's last tour that he just did, and I missed it. I should have gone. But he did what he called his last tour, and he was using a modeling amp. He wasn't using the Axe, the radio or whatever.
The guys from Maine?
Yeah.
Using that one?
Nope, he was using the other popular one.
I can't remember either name.
And his roadie spent 6 months programming it.
Right.
To really get the sounds right.
Yeah.
But he used and he had the Money for Nothing button, and he had the Romeo and Juliet button, and whatever
We've known two good players around here who had them or have them.
I switched to them.
Yeah. They work fine.
But I mean, so for me, when when those XFX ones came around, they were 90% all right, or 85%. They still didn't have it 100%. But now things have really turned that corner, I think. So either that's good news or bad news. Because as we know in the music world, once you can do something digitally, it just becomes easier to do. You just push the button that programs the chip that makes the thing. And everyone's like worried about the Tone Masters. They're like, well, what if it breaks? We ain't fixing it.
No. Pull out the board and stick it
into the board. Just send the board back for reconditioning or whatever. That's what I did with my Nord.
Right.
Same thing. I opened up my Nord because we were touring in Europe. So I had to switch the power supply. And you can run it in European power, but you got to switch it because it's from Europe. There's a switch that's inside. So I took all the screws out. I flipped it open. There's a board this big. It does everything. That's it. It's empty inside. So imagine a Nord. It is mostly empty. And, just flipped the switch on the power supply, put it all back together, drove around the UK for 2 weeks, came back, flipped the switch the other way. Real convenient. But my board at one time failed. And I just 4 screws, hold it in, shipped it off to a guy in New Jersey. He fixed it, sent it back, and it's great. So I think Tone Masters will be, fixable. This won't be cheap, but nothing is.
Going to start stocking some spare boards.
So Albert says, I own the newer brown. I haven't heard of them failing yet either. They've been around for a couple years now, and no one's saying,
"Oh, these 10 years or so."
Yeah. I own a newer brown Tone Master Deluxe Reverb. Yeah, so that's what I have, and the you get the brown one. We just sold a blonde one to John, who was a guest here a few weeks ago. John Booth made the switch.
Oh, he did.
Yeah. Really like the attenuator factor.
Right.
Really play with the attenuator quite a bit. Like, oh, okay. I can get the sound without hurting people. Right. That's a big, don't hurt people. So this is our about halfway through point, which we're a little more than halfway through, but where I say, this is Gary's Guitars, Guitar Talk. We're talking about guitars, amps, digital, analog, tube, solid state, which is kind of different. So Class D is, it's kind of like a whole new, because you always have that, like, this is tube and this is solid state. Well, of course, the new amps, the Tone Masters, they're solid state, but they're just a different. You got to draw a line and say this is
used to be Class A,
digital.
Class AB, and now there's Class D.
Yeah, and it is. It's unfortunate because D sounds like a failing grade. It's actually a great system, that's why all those little PA speakers sound so great now. Same thing. This crazy weird digital technology going on. So, for those of you who don't know, I forgot my tablets. I'm doing this on my phone.
It's being rude.
Sorry to be rude, looking at my phone while we're on the show. But
I can't even read it from here.
So, we're caught up with the room as far as I understand. So, if anyone has any questions, just chime in. Any topics you want to talk about, chime in. Got a couple little topics in my back pocket if nothing comes from the room. Oh, we just got a message. Brian Knights says, with Velcro on pedals, which one goes on the pedal board and which goes on the pedal?
Does it matter?
It doesn't, but there is kind of usually the I guess you would call it the tooth.
The hook end?
The hook end is on the pedal, and the other end is the pedal board, because then it's not hooky on the pedal board when you have the long strip. Because some of them, remember, they would have some that would just be all.
Right.
Yeah.
You stick it wherever you want.
So, there's no standard on that, but that tends to be the way it goes.
Should ask Paul. He's done that for many people.
Yeah.
Who sets up their
Danielle, who's a regular, says, any experience with headless solid body guitars? Why, yes.
Just saw one about 2 hours ago.
Yeah. At a lower bout tall tail end. Body shape seems to be conductive to classical or ergonomic styles. Okay. So we're dealer for NS. I was going to go big on NS just before the pandemic.
Ned Steinberger.
Yeah, Ned Steinberger. He's actually lives in Maine, in Overborough. Went up and visited him. We met a couple of times just coincidentally. Came to a show at the dance hall I was at, and I was like, hey. And he was checking out this guy's cello strap. And I was like, and then he's like, was holding this guy's cello. Obviously couldn't play the cello. It was Mike Block, who's a great cellist. I'm like, why is Mike letting this guy who can't even play cello mess with his cello? That's weird. And I was like, oh, that's Ned Steinberger. And then we ended up having dinner together. That was cool. And then I met him at Nan. Okay, So anyways, I was like, hey, he's like, yeah, come on up. We'll see the workshop, whatever. Did that stuff. Really like his instruments. For those of you who don't know, their orchestral instruments sell more than their basses. They're not making guitar anymore.
I'll go get one.
There's a bass here that's used, but one of the Czechoslovakian-made basses, which are the more premium version. So, yes, the body ergonomics are different for sure. And yeah, to be held in a classical way, of course, yeah, because of that less of the lower belt, you can more easily sit as if you're in a classical playing style, but play in a relaxed. So here's a 5-string NS.
Sounds better than that jazz bass over there.
Yeah.
Actually, I quoted Mike when I got to call a jazz bass a pooch today, Mike.
It's a pooch, yeah.
Perfectly fine until you hit a string.
It looks great. Yeah, so here's the NS. So his original instruments were from the 80s. Steinberger. So now he uses NS rather than Steinberger because he sold the name. He does design for other companies as well. He's most of a design firm as much as a guitar maker. He's figured out a way to use traditional regular strings rather than double ball end strings, using this compound radius. So the balls go on this end, and this side don't have to be balled.
Oh yeah, they come out the other end.
They come out the other end, and
cut them off.
There's an interesting way of adjusting the tune when you put it on.
Similar to the Factor bass.
Factor. Oh yeah.
Remember we had to fix one of those not too long ago. That was a chore.
I think we showed it on this. Yeah. So if you go back to episode 20,
that's right, because
we showed it.
What's his face?
It belongs to George, and Philip gave it to him.
Kubicki. It was Kubicki's prototype.
He called it a prototype. It was a fret. It was a basically got defretted by Kubicki, and the defretting kind of failed, and it just hung on his office wall. And George was like, say, hey, you got to fret. I want that thing. And then one day when Phil had gotten sick and realized that he wasn't going to be here forever, George just went home one day. There was a package waiting on his desk, and there it was. He gave it to him.
And he gave it to us. Could you make this work?
Yeah.
Fortunately, he's an upright player, and if the action's an inch high,
no, he doesn't.
He's fine.
He's like, this action's great.
Yeah.
Okay. And the other thing is that there is one guy, Phil, trusted all of his parts, his excess parts, to this one guy he knew. I think he's in Pennsylvania, so there's a guy, you can find him online. He's got all the parts.
He need a Kubicki part,
but he's a little on the cranky side.
We got a whole new bridge from him, didn't we?
He did a bridge rebuild.
Oh,
he
that's
sent
right.
back the bridge, and he has all the little parts.
Yeah,
he did a rebuild.
The springs were broken.
It does. I think it's $125 flat rate or something to rebuild the bridge. It's worth it if you got the instrument, but he's a little cranky. I will say that. He was with us.
I'm glad I didn't have to deal with him.
Well, he was like, Phil would never let this leave his shop. This must be a fake, or it's like, no, actually, he knew Phil and he personally gave it to him, and so it definitely is a real.
So I'm trying to think of who else. There were other headless solid bodies.
Well, Danielle actually mentioned a few here.
Go ahead.
Stanberg?
Maybe.
Salin? I wish I could zoom on this thing. NX? Maybe that's NS.
NS.
Yeah. What's this? Jazz NX. But what I'll also say, while I remember, is because Danielle and a few other people were asking about the Champion XL. I think it's the 50 XL, whether to go with the Champion 40 or the 50 XL. And I did that research, and the answer is the 40. Even though I haven't played the XL is meant to be more like, because we're talking about as a replacement for the, just a nice jazzy sounding amp that's lightweight. You can take on the subway kind of thing,
Was that an XL that I just
No.
sold the other day?
That's
No,
just
that was
the regular
plain
Champion.
40. Right.
The XL is supposed to be like more overdrive, more
Oh.
like suited to that kind of, rocking. So not necessary if you just want it for the fact that it's a good, clean, regular amp. But let's see if she mentioned anything else about it. So yes, we sell the NS instruments. I think they're great, but they don't make a guitar anymore. The Steinberger guitars are really hard to find. There was the Hofner licensed versions of them that are still kind of cheap.
Well, it's the
For a reason.
I can't remember his name. There's a famous guitar wheeler dealer in Las Vegas, Ed Roman.
Okay.
Pull that out of
Oh
there.
yeah! Whoa!
Oh, shocked! I remember that name.
Whoa! I can smell the smoke.
Yeah.
on that one.
Maybe 15, 20 years ago, he decided he was going to corner the market, and he was going around the country buying
just buying up all
any
the
Steinberger he could find. And now you want to use Steinberger? He's got them, but nobody else, and they're not cheap.
Yeah.
So they're out there, but not everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
I don't remember the last time we saw a used Steinberger for sale. Every once in a while, one wanders in for repair, but
Yeah.
there's not too much to fix on them.
Yeah. I mean, they're pretty. Other than.
Yeah, they're carbon graphite. They don't break. They don't warp.
Something just flashed in my mind when you mentioned that. Oops, I had an interesting thought, but it left already. It's one of those days. My son was homesick, so I was home all morning with him and all stressed out and he's coughing. So, long day. So hopefully that's a good enough answer for Danielle.
I'm still trying to. There was somebody back in the 70s.
Did us
or 80s.
Headless.
It's like Steinberger wasn't the first guy.
Yeah.
Somebody else had done it on a very
But I don't
small
think it's just
scale.
the headless she's talking about, but the smaller body for playing classical,
right.
style. And so that might be because you often see Joe.
Oh, as opposed to a cube.
No, we're talking about the. It was it's supposed to having the regular lower bout. The Steinberger guitar, they're just smaller. Because they made those tiny
the cubes.
Okay, yeah. But even their regular ones were kind of ergonomic. He's all about ergonomics. That's why it's called the radius. The entire body has a radius to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is
front and back.
Yeah, so the back is radius, and the front and the back radius the same.
And it's got an arch top.
Yeah, arch top and an arch back, because humans have an arch front usually. Yeah, and so he kind of, he's just a genius engineer. He can hardly play. He can play well enough to test one out and set it up, but he's not a player. He's just
the bodies are wood, I think, but the necks are maybe not.
Yeah, well, the fingerboard's definitely composite.
Yeah.
The rest of the neck is probably
maybe, can't tell from here.
And different models in the different lines have different,
It does have a truss rod because I just adjusted it, so I know it does move. So
yeah,
maybe it's wood.
Yeah. Let's see. Hofner made a headless bass.
Huh.
I kind of believe that.
Huh. Yeah.
They made a very little head bass, and that's the. Remember, we sold some of those. A bass with a head so little it looked like it was the shorty bass. Remember those? We sold a few of those. Scaled down body, little head stop.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like a mini bass.
Yeah. Shorty they called it. Yeah, small body.
Yeah, that was a short.
But maybe
short-lived thing.
Yeah.
Was there a Harmony shorty? There was one I lusted after.
Yeah.
Way back when in a store. It was there forever, and I really wanted it. It was like 25 inches long, maybe. And it was a bass, and it was a Harmony, and I gotta have it. But,
I remember a friend of mine in school had a Memphis real short scale, because the Hofner isn't actually short scale. It's kind of medium scale.
Yeah.
It's just under medium, but you actually have to use medium scale strings because of the 0 fret and because of the tailpiece. So it's not like short. Like real short would be 24 inches instead.
Like a Mustang bass.
Mustang is pretty short.
Those are short scale.
Those might be
some Dan Electros were short scale.
Dan Electros were really short scale. Some of them were. But some of them aren't. I think it's 30 is the regular Dan Electro short scale is 30, just kind of like a Hofner.
Right.
But so anyways, I just still remember I just lusted after this short scale bass. That'd be so cool. You play bass and it wouldn't be like harder than playing guitar. But that short, they never kind of worked. But then I got a Hofner.
Not enough string.
1986. I bought a Hofner and I still got it. This actually happens. Our viewership enlarges as it goes on, and then when it's almost time to go, we have our maximum audience.
Oh, we should say we end at 6:30 then.
Yeah, right. We just got to end the show sooner. We get more audience.
Wow.
So I also want to mention while we're at it, because this is every about 15 minutes, I say Guitar Talk, Gary's Guitars. Gary, I'm Mark. Just talking about guitars, hanging out. Talk about anything about guitars. So bring it on. Paul is saying, I just can't get used to a headless guitar look. Looks like a broken guitar. True.
Was this? No, this was before I opened the store. When I was working at the Guitar Warehouse, used Steinberger bass came in.
Yeah.
It was the height of the Steinberger rage, so I tried it. And, well, this is really cool. And took it home, had it for a while. Finally said, okay, I just got to do it. So left the jazz bass home. Took the Steinberger to a gig.
Yeah.
Was the longest night of my life. Like, took me about half a set to realize that my peripheral vision, you can't really see that there's no headstock when you're watching people dance.
Freaks you out.
So I'm always going, oh, wait, no. That's not you. I mean to play A. And I was like 2 frets off.
The whole night, yeah.
And then finally said, okay, I just got to watch my left hand. And I did that for the rest of the night. Went, this is awful. I want to watch people dance. I want to go take a look at the guitar player.
Yeah.
I got rid of it the next day.
Yeah, I mean, you get used to it.
So
Rob, who owned that bass, is the one that's used the NS we have. That was his wedding band bass.
Oh, yeah.
Because these wedding bands, serious wedding bands, you got to read the whole day. The whole gig is off of charts,
right?
And he can eat charts anyways. Oh, yeah. And you need to have a 5-string because the charts are all written for 5-string. And if you show up with a 4-string, you're gonna run out of strings. And just lightweight, easy to play, easy to hold. That was his 3-set wedding gig bass, right. And that's why. And he just got another one or something that kind of replaced it for him. Yeah. So that's the only reason he's selling it. So it is, for the ergonomics are solid. That's the reason that no head is it doesn't head dive on you.
Right.
Makes sense in that respect. All right. Trigger and I cut the headstock off a solid body K, nailed tuners on the body, and I've seen that happen, nailed a guitar case handle on the body in 1977 at Daddy's. No, there are some that, they just put tuners on the other end. There was
that's right,
recently.
the Kramer Duke. That's the one I was trying to think of. Yeah. Had regular tuners down here.
The tuners are down here.
Yeah, looked like a Steinberger, sort of.
And didn't it have an optional body? You could click one of those that actually had a body you could click it into, or you could play it without the body or with the body.
I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, and there's another inexpensive. And the guy brought in that guitar today that looked like a 6-string Steinberger that he bought in a kit and put together.
Oh, it was a kit. Oh.
Said it was a kit. That's why it didn't work. Remember? Because it wasn't actually hitting the 0 fret. It was going past the 0 fret. So it's
wasn't even touching the 0 fret.
And I was like, we can work on this. We'll have Peter work on it. He's more of a guitar maker because it's less setup work and more just remaking this. And I'm like, if you're lucky, maybe $100. He goes, it only cost $110. I'm not spending $100 fixing it.
Right.
Like, well,
put a capo on the first fret.
Yeah. there you go.
And tune that to E.
Yeah. Tune to E
the
flat.
position markers.
Yeah. And because you don't have a headstock, so your eye's going to be thrown off anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it. We should have given him that advice.
Or just pull the 0. No, then his intonation would be whacked. No, never mind.
Oh, no, it's acting as if there is no 0 fret. That's
right.
And now, they figured out because his Ned Steinberger's patents were pretty good.
Right.
And people couldn't really crack them. They couldn't really make the same thing, but cheaper.
Right.
Until, and like I said, he did license to Hofner. Sorry.
Right. Hofner made.
But eventually people found workarounds to get around that, or they just stopped caring about, which is most of the Chinese makers. They just stopped caring about patents. They're just like, okay, we'll just make it.
There's no law in China about patents, apparently.
No, there isn't.
There's no patenting.
They don't follow our patent laws. Those are our laws.
Yeah, we can make any. We can make
communism.
sure
It belongs to this stuff belongs to everybody. It's
right.
communism, which is not communism anymore. It's just a vessel for authoritarianism. But you didn't come here for geopolitics, did you?
Guitar politics. There you go.
Guitar politics. There's a lot of.
Somehow
there's a
Ted
class.
Nugent just popped into my head.
Yeah, the Motor City Madman. He named himself, so not our fault.
Right.
We've always known he was a madman. Let's see if we have anything. So, like, once again, I apologize for using my phone on the show, but I forgot my tablet. Because I'm using my tablet, by the way, if we have anyone who lives around here, I'm going to plug my gig. I took my tablet out of the store because I'm using it to read lyrics off of because we're doing Van Morrison's Moondance album. It's in its entirety in Kittery at the John Paul Jones Park with horns, backing vocals, Elroy, special guests, a lot of people involved in it, and it's going to be good. That's this
aside
weekend.
From Moondance, they name 3 songs from that album.
I can name them all because
I know you
practicing.
can. Yeah. I'm drawing a blank.
Half a mile from the county fair.
Okay, whatever it's called.
And it stoned me, or it stoned me.
Right.
There's a lot of it. Come Running.
Oh yeah, I know it's a great album.
I dreamed you paid your dues in Canada.
Yeah.
These Dreams of You. Yeah. So it's a great album, and we have a special encore surprise. So if you are in the Portsmouth Kittery area, this Saturday at 5:30, John Paul Jones Park, tickets at the Dance Hall Kittery website. I just plugged my gig. First time I ever plugged my gig. I usually don't plug the store at gigs. I don't plug the gigs at the store. But someone mentioned something that, Well, my tablet, that's why.
Your previous Van Morrison tribute night went over so well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. People were stopping me on the streets going, when are you doing that again? So we did Astro Weeks a year ago, same group of people. I did Astro Weeks, and people went nuts for it. So I was like, okay, we'll do it again.
Yeah, well, everybody's sick of the Bob Dylan tribute nights.
Yeah,
right.
Van Morrison.
Let's do somebody else.
So there's that story. What else? Let me double check the room here. Despite the fact we have more people than on the whole day, there's no one's talking.
Did we answer all the questions?
I think we got to everything.
Well, just in time.
Just in time. It's almost wrap it up
1 minute to go.
So hit the like button. We got to tell you that because that's how YouTube decides whether or not this was a worthwhile thing and decides whether or not to recommend it to people. Check out the other YouTube videos. Hit subscribe and notifications if you want to be notified. We're here most Wednesdays. I did miss a couple Wednesdays. I'm sorry, but get stuff. And then what else do we have to? And then other videos on YouTube. There's about 70 other videos. There's about 70 lives and 70 gear review kind of things. Check those out. Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. No TikTok. Can't figure out how to use TikTok. I mean, like really use it for anything other than dancing.
Guitar licks.
Yeah, that's
10-second guitar licks. Yeah. There's a lot of them.
Well, I only know 4 of them. So.
Oh well, you need.
Get
Tim Cario in here. Do 2 hours.
Yeah, just do 2 hours of 10-second guitar licks. Yeah, that guy's got all the licks. Right. Mr. Licks. All right. So, and I didn't even get to talk about that Fender amp.
Oh, yeah. They are still making the Hot Rod Deluxe.
Still making the Hot Rod Deluxe. We just got one as a special order. Version 4 is really cool. I was at a gig. They had a back line at the gig. John McCormick gets up with Bitter Pill and rips on guitar. And he was looking behind him to make sure he was still plugged into the same amp. He was like, that is a Blues Deluxe, a Hot Rod Deluxe. I can't believe it. And he was like, oh my God, that sounds so good. And I'm like, you're right. You got to get one of those. He's like, I got to get one of those. Like, you got to get one of those. So we ordered one months ago. And it's finally showing up.
Haven't even opened the box yet.
Haven't opened the box yet, but we might want to leave that for him. The glory
people
of
like that.
The box opening.
It's like Christmas.
Okay. So, people are signing off now saying thank you. So, we'll say thank you. See you next Wednesday. And that's it for now. Yeah. Say good night, Gary.
Good night, everybody, or morning, or wherever you are.